So one of the best examples of this all time was our recordings. Out of the almost 200 episodes, we interviewed Dwayne in person. I don't know where we were. Do you remember where we? I don't know.
No, we were in a boardroom. I remember that.
Yeah, it was like some weird situation where we were like there, and so I was like, Dwayne, let's just do an interview, and so we'll just talk about life and stuff, and so Dwayne's doing his whole thing. It was great, I was like just hearing Dwayne, who I love and respect, and so it was like cool. We stopped the thing, and then we started talking about crazy creative stories or whatever.
Oh God. Yeah.
So we don't have to do that today, but he starts talking, and then he starts telling a story about India, and I was like, dude, we gotta hit record. Like, this is because the story.
I remember that.
The massage
I remember
story.
listening to that.
Yeah, because the story was so good. I was like, we have to record it. He's like, you sure? I don't know. I'm like,
yeah, I remember that. I remember listening to him in that story for sure.
It was epic. If you haven't listened to it, I don't remember what episode it is, but at the end, so the last 15 minutes, he tells a story about getting a massage in India. It's like the best story ever. So, yeah. Anyways, I say that with like, sometimes you just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
All right. Well, we got Cardi B in the house. Adam, for the record, where did that nickname begin?
I was like, does everybody call you that?
Oh, man. So that actually, that was a John Scala special.
Was it?
Okay. Yeah. We met, I think, once or twice. And for some reason, that name, he just started calling me that. And then that proliferated. So everybody basically started calling me that, professionally at least, not in my personal life, thank God. But
so no one calls you that outside of people that are associated with like John.
Yeah,
that's insane. That's insane.
And then the best part is I'll get onto calls with clients or prospects, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, you're Cardi B." I'm like, "How did you get that information?" Right? And so.
How do you know
it is kind of funny where I'm like, yeah, it's easier than Cartabiano because most people can't pronounce that. So it's just an easier month.
I don't know. It is phonetic. It is spelled exactly the way it sounds. It's not a complicated name.
Without a doubt, but people you get the question mark at the end of it's not like a Cartabiano, it's like Cartabiano. Yeah. It's like Ron Burgundy when he's like at the end of his stage.
No.
Yeah. For sure.
I almost feel bad that Scala hasn't given me a nickname. Ben, do you have a Scala nickname?
I think he calls me lots of different things, but nothing like that where it's like it's like sticks.
I don't know. I'm a little heartbroken.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be sad about it now.
Like Farbs calls me Reegs. Which no one else does. Like, no one calls me that.
Fair enough.
I think it's like endearing, I guess. Only interesting thing about Adam, you have a very short first name, but your last name's long. My first name is long, and so when I was a kid, my mother would not let people call me Benji or Betty. So, and I get it, right? Like at the time, there was like a dog movie that was so it was like. So she's like, no one calls you. So in my lifetime, I've only had like one or two people that I've let call me that, one of those things. And it was like some older lady usually that I worked with or something. And it was like, but almost to its fault, I say no one has ever like called me that, which is very fascinating. I just find because that's an easy like nickname to kind of throw in there.
Yeah. Well, my middle name is Sebastian. So it's Adam Sebastian Cartabiano. So when I have to fill out
syllables,
forms to fill out like full name,
they don't have enough like spaces for the middle and like the middle name in most of those forms.
No. Well, so here's a funny story about actually the valuable use of utilizing your middle name. So I lived in Michigan for a brief period of time. So when I moved from Illinois,
which is a lovely state, just so we're on the same page.
You said that with pride, right?
Yeah.
No,
exactly.
Listen, I love Michigan, but so when I moved there, I applied for my license, and on the license form, they fill out your name, et cetera, et cetera. So I put my full name in there. Well, in Illinois, where I was moving from, I had only put an S. So what that caused to happen is it triggered a brand new license number for me. So my license number didn't go over. And what ended up happening is I ended up getting like 2 speeding tickets in Michigan. And so obviously they were on my record, but then I moved back to Illinois at a later point in time. And I tried to get my license transfer back, and they're like, we can't transfer it. You have 2 records in your name in Michigan. I'm like, what? So it was this whole ordeal. Finally got it solved. They merged the numbers, et cetera, et cetera. Well, they merged it back to my original number. So my driving record looks completely clean because those 2 tickets are sitting in some
purgatory somewhere.
In the purgatory somewhere. Insurance wise, everything. I have no issues, but it literally was because of the S versus Sebastian.
It's surprising you got a speeding ticket in Detroit. Like, that's hard to do, actually.
No, this guy was sitting right near the airport exit at DTW, and I was in a rush to get on a plane, so he just picked me out. Yeah, I was like,
actually, that stretch of 94 is like notorious for cops. Like, I never go over the speed limit there. It's like the only place in Detroit. Honestly, everything else is like a free for all.
Yeah.
Anyways, we digress. So, Tina brought up a good point. Like, I don't think I've ever heard like the origin story of. I'm not gonna call you Cardi B. That seems rude.
Everybody else
Cartabiano.
Origin story.
Let's hear like the origin story of Adam. Where'd you grow up?
All right.
Like,
so I grew up. I was born in Amish country, Pennsylvania. So I was actually born in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Where we lived, was fairly rural. We had like a sportsman's park shooting range in the woods behind our house. We had Mennonite friends. I always tell the story when I was growing up. Every Thanksgiving, we would go to our friends' farms, and we were 5 years old, and we'd be running around the pen tackling turkeys that were basically our size. And the grandfather of the family would literally drag them out, and he'd knock the heads off. And there's like a whole production setup, boiling water, pick the feathers, all that. So that was kind of the first 8 years of my life, and then
oh my gosh.
Yeah, then we moved to Illinois, out in the prairie at the time. It wasn't very developed where we lived. And then we moved back to Jersey, and then back to Illinois my junior year of high school. And so I finished my last 2 years of high school there. I actually originally was going to college to be a meteorologist. That was my number one goal.
I can see that. I could see you in front of that green screen telling us.
No, I actually
there.
I want you to be a TV meteorologist.
Yeah, I actually wanted to go. Actually, my goal was to get a PhD in climatology. Was my
look at you
thing. Yeah. I was a big physics nerd in high school, so I just loved that math component of it. And so while I was applying to all these atmospheric sciences programs across the country, I started to get recruited to play baseball. So I got recruited by the Air Force Academy. So I almost ended up going there. And then at the very last minute, University of Chicago sent me a letter and said, hey, we'd really like if you would consider coming here to play baseball. And so I applied there, early acceptance, the whole thing. I got in right away. And then right before I was about to go to college, I just decided I wasn't going pro, and I knew school was going to be very tough. So I actually called the coach and said, hey, I'm not going to be playing ball. So I ended up going there. Didn't know what I wanted to do. Majored in economics, like basically everybody else around me. I was like, I'm going into banking. So I graduated. I went into investment banking for about a year. Yeah. Did not enjoy it that much. So only lasted there a year. And then I actually got into industrial manufacturing consulting. And so I actually did consulting at General Motors, the Warren Tech Campus, for about a year. And during that year, um, while I was there, I had also applied to do a post-baccalaureate at Loyola back in Chicago to actually go get my medical degree. I was like, I really think I made a bad decision here. I wanted to go back, become a doctor. So I got into the program, and while that happened, I met Mike Brennan on the flights between Chicago and Detroit. Literally, that is how we became friends, is literally flights between Chicago and Detroit every week. And then lo and behold, the consulting company I was working for when we moved to Boston, my family was in Chicago. So I was like, I got to find something new. So I called Mike. I said, "Hey man, you got anything available?" And he's like, "Yeah, I think so." And that's how I ended up at Accretive Health originally. And then, ironically,
that's basically everyone's story.
Yeah, well, and ironically,
playing, I knew this guy, and they were like, "There's this company that's in this thing I never heard of." You're like,
yeah,
okay.
And the weird thing is a week after I got, I started or accepted at Accretive, I actually had previously applied to work at the CIA like a year ago. And they literally called me a week after I accepted my role at Accretive Health to come interview for clandestine services. I remember this.
Crazy.
Yeah. So obviously, I didn't obviously do any of that. And that was my foray into healthcare.
Wait, and then do you ever think about that? You're like, man, I should have just done that. Or you're like, no way, that's not way. It would have been terrible. I got a few friends in the FBI, so I know a little bit of like the.
Yeah, I would say yes and no. I think with everything that frankly has happened since that, 20 years ago, I think it would have been a very interesting career. But I also know there's a lot of burnout and there's a lot of challenges with, relationships, marriages, et cetera, et cetera.
You don't have a family, basically.
Yeah. And so it would have been thrilling, most likely, but it probably would not have been something that I probably would have stuck with for an entire career. But I have neighbors that actually, they spent their entire lives working for the State Department, and their stories are very, very interesting. When we're down at the community pool and they're like, "Oh yeah, I've been to Riyadh, most of my life. And, we did all this stuff." And it's like, wow, that is an insane life. It's great storytelling for sure.
Yeah. There's a value to that. Cool. Stories.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I've been in healthcare ever since and love it. And for me, at least, the reason I like it so much is just there's always new problems to solve and new opportunities to frankly help. And that's kind of what has kept me in the industry for as long as it has. And it's very mission driven, which, I always tell people you can do a lot of different things, but a lot of those things are building widgets or things. I said the difference between that and doing even consulting in healthcare is most of what you're doing actually has impacts on the communities that you're helping to serve. And so I said from that perspective, it's really enjoyable. It's very challenging, but at the end of the day, when you have a success, you know that success isn't just yours. It's across the broader community of both people that you're working with at the hospitals, but more importantly, the patients as well. So that's why I've just enjoyed it.
What was your first what was your first assignment at Accretive, like in Rev Cycle? And what's the funniest thing that happened to you? Because there's always something ridiculous.
Yeah. So my first assignment was actually on the finance team. So we did that was kind of, I started in the finance piece of it just because that was my background.
Really? I didn't know that. Ruben?
I was part of the measurement team with Brian Rubin way back when. So yeah, that's where I started, and obviously then migrated into operations over time. But yeah, that's kind of where I started. I would say that the craziest story is not necessarily a story per se, but I just always remember having to go into the office on Fridays in full suits in Chicago, and they didn't have any shades on the windows. So midsummer, you're just getting blasted with sun while in a full suit. Actually, no. Okay, so I will tell you that it was actually my interview with the creative. I lived down the street down near Lakeshore Drive. Went to the interview. It was awesome. Everything worked out well, obviously. I left the interview and I was walking home, and it was midsummer, so it was probably, low 80s. And it had just downpoured. It was like one of those days where it downpoured, tons of water and puddles in the street, and then the sun just came blazing back up. And so I was walking home on, I think it was Grand Avenue, towards the lake, and there's that AMC theater right there.
Yeah.
And I'm literally standing there waiting for the light to change. And I remember this vividly. There was a white Jeep Cherokee that was trying to make the light, and there was a massive puddle right in front of me. And it was a literal cartoon. He hit that puddle at full speed, and it was a wave of water. Literally, it was a wave of water over my head. I was dripping wet with street water in a full suit in the middle of an 80-degree day walking home. No joke. And then ironically, the next week I was walking home again, and literally the same kind of environment. There was a guy in front of me that it happened to. Same exact thing.
You live and learn.
and of course, I'm dying laughing because it's not me, right? So
you're like, I get to laugh because it's happened to me. Like, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like we connected. Like I was like, I understand, man. That happened to you last week. I get it. But he was drenched.
I feel like Means has the same story. Did you remember? He tells it like he was in town, like he was in Chicago, and then he's like, he's gonna take the bus, and he's like, why are all these people standing back against the street? He's like, so he's like standing near the street, right? And it's raining. Bus comes through, whoa, boom, just the same thing to him, and all those people are like, oh, he's like, that's why they're standing back there.
Yeah, it's unavoidable on those street cars because they literally, it's the drains right there, and it's the deepest part of the curb, and
they're all just looking at him like, noob, what are you doing?
Yeah, what an idiot.
what an idiot. And then he's standing the next time like you were, like back at the street, back against the building, and then
you're a veteran at that point for sure. That's funny.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
but yeah,
a creative measurement that actually brings back nightmares for me.
Yeah, we
had this thing, Tina, where it's like comb the dog. That was a term that Mary came up with. Adam, describe what that is.
It was a more thorough review of the numbers. We'll leave it at that. So,
but she made it like she made all of us do like reviews, and it was like it was insane. I don't know how many hours I put into that. It actually hurts me a little bit knowing I wasted like a year of my life probably.
Yeah, I would say my time there was it really set the stage for the rest of my career. In terms of just the diligence around operational metrics and really kind of diving into detail. So that's, I had obviously some experience before that, but that was a really good testing ground or proving ground because you had to prove everything, right? It wasn't something that you could just let slide or slip. You really had to know your numbers inside and out.
That is a true statement.
Yeah.
I will say, Mary taught us, like, know your numbers. Like, I didn't go into anything after that without like knowing everything about whatever it was I was doing.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that was the
without
thing
a doubt.
She would get you if you didn't know a single. There'd be one number on an entire thing of like 3 hours worth of work, a site review, and then she would know the number you didn't know. I mean, it was like a gift I don't even understand. She was like a Jedi.
For sure. But yeah, like I said, it was super valuable.
So what'd you do after that? What were you? So yeah, after creative, like when did you leave?
So I left in 2010, and then I went to actually wanted to get into more analytics. So I actually went to Medi Analytics for a few years, and then I went to Prism Healthcare Consultant Group, which ultimately merged with Berkeley Research Group. I wasn't there for that. And then I was at Huron, which was also a great experience, great people, learned a ton there. And then went to Optum for a while, the Optum 360, where they were doing
You did? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yep. So did that for a while, and then came to CloudMed, and then that was kind of my journey until now. And so it was all very good kind of learning. I learned different things at different stages. And so by the time I got to CloudMed, I felt like I had something to contribute when I was there. And so it was a really great run and really great people, and still have a lot of, friends and close counterparts that still work there, and they do great work. And then, been at Notion now since July. So, and that's going well, enjoying it, and obviously a lot of work, but once again, great group of people, very mission driven, and just really excited for the future.
But in that time, didn't you create a little business and that got bought, right? That's how you ended up there.
Well, so
did I misunderstand that?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, I created a product for interest and penalties because I was at a conference and I was talking with some folks, and the concept came up, and I literally went home that night and stayed up until like 2 a.m. doing research on this component, and realized that it was a significant revenue stream that most organizations just weren't really looking at. And so we set about creating an interest and penalties product that would essentially take in all the claims data and then evaluate interest that would be owed across that claims population. So that's something that we're still doing today. But obviously that got rolled into, Switch and Notion. But yeah, it was really interesting because
well, explain it for the layman I was out here, because I don't think I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, so all 50 states have prompt pay laws on the books, and some providers
just healthcare focused or just not or
yep,
healthcare focused.
All 50 states have healthcare specific prompt pay and penalty laws on the books. And
are those? Can I just jump? Can I ask a question? Yeah. Are they different per state?
Yes.
And what is considered prompt?
Yeah.
Just for clarity.
Or is that different?
No, that's totally fair. So the definition of prompt is different by state. So sometimes it's 30 calendar days, sometimes it's 30 business days, sometimes it's 45 days. So it really depends. It's state by state rule, so to speak. And then the interest penalties per state are also different and can vary pretty widely. So Virginia, for example, is at 6%. If you look at like North Carolina, it's like 18%.
Oh God, 18%.
Yeah, per year,
real money.
Obviously.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. And then does that penalty accrue daily, or
also different?
Sorry.
Yeah, no.
Just
that's
asking
totally
questions.
Fair question.
No, I have no idea.
Because I feel like the math problem you're working out is complicated.
Insane.
That's why.
This is like right up your alley, dude. No wonder you figured this out.
I know.
Yeah, well, that's
math wizard.
It was I actually had to go back to my algebra days to create the formula for how Medicare does their interest penalties. So typically, Tina, it's a simple interest calculation. So basically, if you have a 18% per annum rate, you divide that by 365, multiply it by the number of days the claim is late, and then multiply that by the principal balance.
Sure. Yeah. Now I'm just sweating. Sounds
it's like, I don't like this. I don't like this.
Yeah. Basically that I could probably handle. You get into those things with planes and angles and stuff, I can't do that. But that I could probably manage.
But then Medicare actually does compounding interest. So you actually have to calculate compounding interest monthly, and then if it's an intraday month, or say that the payment is finally made on the 15th of the month, so you get every 30 days there's a certain percentage of interest, but then you have to calculate the per day interest for those remaining 15 days. Mm-hmm. So it was a lot of math.
This is somebody else's problem. This is why there's people who have brains like you do.
Yeah.
Well, plus isn't it happening at the claim level?
Yes.
Ultimately, it's not as simple as like they owe us $1 million and it was 30 days late. It's like none of that's because all like 100,000 claims or 10,000 claims that make that up, right?
Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, you first have to figure out how do you create a full claims lineage, which we figured out. So by the time an 837 drops, how do you tie it to the final 835 through all the iterations that can occur over that time period, so you can get basically the timestamps correct. And then once you do that, you have to figure out is it clean or not, in terms of the claim being clean. And then you have to figure out, is it ERISA based or is it non-ERISA based? Because the non-ERISA based are governed by the Department of Insurance of that state. The ERISA based are obviously governed by the Social Security Act of, I think, 1970 or 72.
What?
Yeah.
Wait, explain why a claim wouldn't be ERISA or non-ERISA.
So
for Susie who doesn't know, we're
yes,
talking
okay.
Or Tina who doesn't.
No, I'm not saying that.
So
no, you don't have to call her Susie. You can call her Tina today. It's fine.
The easiest way to think about it is non-ERISA based plans. Basically, the insurance company is taking on the liability and risk of that patient. An ERISA-based plan or self-insured plans, which is about 65% of the commercial plans out there, the financial risk is actually on the employer, and the insurance company is just an administrator. Which plans,
is, by the way, going into court. A lot of this is like happening in court right now about insurance companies not being fiduciary responsibility, even though they should, because they're the third-party administrator. There's a whole. Yep. We have Chris Deacon coming on. We unfortunately got canceled in January, and she wrote this whole book. I don't know if you know who Chris is, but she's amazing. It's going to be amazing. So because she's basically done the expose on this. It's nuts.
Yeah,
so it's a rabbit hole.
Oh, without a doubt. And the other interesting thing too, and I know we're going to talk about the IDR stuff, but the other interesting thing too about interest and penalties, like if I hired you to come fix my roof, right, and it's a $30,000 fee to replace my roof, there's a good chance that in that contract you're going to say, hey, our net payment terms are 30 days or 60 days. If you don't pay it, you owe me a 0.5% of interest for every month that it's beyond that date. Most managed care contracts have nothing in there related to interest and penalties.
So if it's not in the contract, but you have something in your state, you can still go off of the state law, right?
Yeah, but here's the reason to have it in the contract, and this is what we talk to providers about. If it is not in the contract, typically what is in those contracts, there will be a phrase that will say, as applicable under state or federal law. What that essentially allows these ERISA-based plans to do is say, state law doesn't apply to me, federal law does, and at the federal level, there is no interest or penalty payment requirement.
It's like sneaky, isn't it? That feels like there's got to be some lawsuits about that, or there will be.
There is. There's been multiple lawsuits. There's been a variety of lawsuits in Texas. There's one in, I think, 2016 where Methodist in Dallas, I think, sued Aetna or Cigna for about $35 million on interest and penalties over a 4-year look-back period. And there was arguments
did all those settle by chance, or did some become case law?
No, I think a lot of it became case law, unfortunately. And there's still debates today as to whether or not ERISA-based plans are subject to state laws. Like it is kind of all over the map, and there's different federal courts rule differently. So it's about as clear as mud. But that's why, when we talk to providers, we're like, if you do nothing, just get this language included in your document and ensure that contract is structured such that any plan or any member that comes into your organization, regardless of whether it's ERISA or non-ERISA, is subject to this interest and penalty component. Because we're aware of some providers that do it, and it's a significant revenue stream for them.
Yeah. Well, it would seem like this is where I go insane about some of this stuff, is like the health system has no idea whether the person coming in is an ERISA or not ERISA, right? They would have no knowledge of that. In fact, it has no bearing on the fact that they receive care, nor does it have a bearing on the claim that they send out, right? Because we don't know. We don't know any of those things. That is like a thing within the health system, or with the plan, right? The plan is going to know that.
Yes and no. A lot of it is available on the insurance cards. Not all the time. It is available. Like you'll see a little icon that says DOI, which usually means that it's some sort of fully funded plan that's governed by the Department of Insurance of that state. And sometimes you'll see the actual employer. You get your insurance card, you actually see the employer name at the top left corner. Those are usually a good identifier that it's a self-funded plan. Frankly, the best resource of information for that is the Department of Labor. So all these companies have to fill out a form called the 5500, and that delineates what insurance they're providing their staff. And it doesn't have to be completed by everybody, so it's not complete. But usually what will happen in that data set is you'll actually see there's a column called contract ID. That contract ID actually and typically ties to the group number on these insurance plan cards. So there are ways and mechanisms to be able to evaluate. We obviously have done a lot of that work, but it took us a while to kind of comb through everything and figure out how do we tie all this together to try to get the best representation of what's ERISA versus non-ERISA. Because to your point, Ben, a lot of providers just don't know.
So somehow you figured out like the algorithm and then like the little computer bots doing stuff behind the scenes to figure out like how to actually like charge for it. Like, I mean, that's what I'm assuming you figured out, right?
Yep, for sure. And the other nice thing too is we hand over a lot of that ERISA information to our partners, and some of them actually have evaluated to actually set up structured ERISA versus non-ERISA based AR follow-up teams. Because the ERISA based people, you might as well not even go to the payer. You might as well go directly to the employer to get things solved, especially as it relates to AR follow-up and denials.
Isn't this crazy? That's insane to me. It also just my point of my talk I gave last year or earlier this year around why I think like these big employers, like they're using this thing as like the insurance as this intermediary. It's costing them so much money, and they're not even fiduciary responsible.
No.
So it's not like they have like they're actually like it's just like you're spending so much for them to administer something, which if you just went direct, you could solve all these problems.
Yeah, I mean, for all intents and purposes, the insurance companies are just banks. They're just holding on to your
banks.
Money. Yep, for sure.
The longer I can hold your money, which is I'm talking about the employers, the longer I can hold your money, the better I am. And the longer I can hold it and not pay it, the better I am. And the fact that I don't have fiduciary responsibility means I don't really have what's my role in this? I don't even know. I actually don't even know.
Well, and the other interesting thing too, as it relates to the interest and penalties piece, what we see a lot of times in states that if your prompt pay penalty is at 30 days, you get a majority of your payments at 29 days.
Of course you do.
Right. But then the weird thing is if you look back in history on that same payer, the year before it was 25, the year before that was 20. So what they've said is, well, wait a minute. If we aren't subject to any penalties for 30 days, why not just hold the cash in our accounts?
Of course.
Get interest, and then we'll pay it out according to the statutory requirements. But you see that trend in terms of them pushing their payments to the latest possible date before those prompt pay penalties start hitting.
It's all just a game. You know for a fact there's a little company like the one you built on the other side figuring that thing out, and they figure out the algorithm, and they're like, we just sell this to all the insurance companies, and look at what they'll get. It's amazing. They'll get 4 or 5 points on every... It drives me crazy.
Are you looking for a judgment-free revenue cycle space? Do you want to expand your revenue management skills and learn insider strategies? Check out RevCycle 101. Unlock the foundations of healthcare finance with RevCycle 101, a comprehensive course designed to give anyone, from a recent graduate taking their first professional steps to a seasoned sales leader refining their expertise, the clarity and confidence to excel in revenue cycle management. Through easy-to-understand terminology, practical tools, and proven methods, this course demystifies the complexities of the revenue cycle. It equips you with the skills to drive results, optimize operational efficiency, and significantly advance your career in the shifting realities of today's healthcare industry. Click the link in the description for more information. Now back to the show.
It drives me
Yeah,
crazy. There's always little games that people like who aren't in the detail don't know the nuance, like of all the little things that are happening, and everyone taking their little margin. This is my big thing for 25. It's like healthcare is basically like everyone taking a bite out of everyone taking their share. Everyone taking their little margin. And there's so much that happening on so many levels. Like, oh yeah, this is what you want to know why healthcare is expensive because everyone's taking their little bite. And some people are taking, like PBMs are taking a huge bite, right? And so
massive.
you just have these things that are like inherently built in a system because there's money involved.
Without doubt. Yeah. I mean, it's all P&L
And
driven for
it's
sure.
not as simple as like I went into Best Buy and I bought something. So I paid for it. I decided to buy it. It's like none of it is that simple.
Nope.
So I'll get on my soapbox here, but that was, yeah.
I always tell people that because, it's really hard to describe what we do because they're like, yeah, I have insurance. Why would I care? And I'm like, no. You have to understand it. And I actually use Best Buy as an analogy. I was like, when you go into Best Buy, you buy a TV, you hand them cash, they give you the TV, and Samsung knows down to the part what contribution margins they're making on every 100%. Little part in that thing. I said, so imagine walking into Best Buy saying, I want that TV, them giving you the TV, and you saying, don't worry about it. This third party will pay you may or may not pay you at a later point in time. I said,
who Samsung doesn't actually know their cost.
Right, exactly. Right. And Samsung doesn't know their cost.
That's basically what we're left with.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So they're like, no, that can't be. I'm like, no, that's exactly the way the whole healthcare financial system works.
And in an emergency, I need a TV. It's an emergency. So right. We don't even have any questions then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You just get the TV, no questions
asked. Get
the
TV and walk out.
And then you can leave and no questions.
It's the Super Bowl and my TV died. I need a TV now.
Yep.
I love this analogy, actually. We go a long way with that.
Yeah. But
I don't even know. So you mentioned something else. I thought IDR. What's IDR then? You said IDR.
Okay, so IDR, Independent Dispute Resolution Process under the No Surprises Act.
That's something different.
That is something different.
Okay,
sure.
So you have the interest thing now. Before we go to this next thing, how many hospitals do you think are actually going to get interest and penalties from payers? Employers, I guess mostly employers aren't going to understand this.
Well, no, it's going to be mostly the payers because it's mostly going to be the fully funded plans. So that's what we're helping providers with right now. So it's similar to an underpayment where you have to present the data, you have to present the argument, you have to bring claim level information, et cetera, et cetera. So that's frankly what we're helping providers with now. What I would say is it's new. So the mechanism by which we translate that into additional revenue is to a certain degree, we're working through that to try to figure that out. Because you have to keep in mind, interest and penalties are usually mostly utilized as a leverage point in negotiations. So if you ever, you talk to providers around, hey, we settled with whatever payer out in the market, they'll say, as part of that settlement, we're not going to request interest and penalties. So that's really where it's been utilized most frequently in the past. Providers, though, don't have or didn't have a mechanism to track it at the claim level on a daily basis.
Well, that and my guess is, I'm not going to speak ill of managed care, they don't actually know what that number is. They're going to say that. They're going to give that up as a negotiation point without really understanding how much money is at stake.
I was going to say, do we know what ballpark, what kind of dollars that is? Interest and penalties? Just out of curiosity. I mean, I know what interest looks like on my credit card, so I can only imagine when we're talking about a balance that's gazillion times what that is,
Yeah, so typically we see in the clients that we have, we typically see that about 1% to 2% of claims, all claims volume, does not have either it was incorrectly paid or not paid at all. So we have a variety of claims that are paid timely, or when they are late, their interest calculation ties penny to penny to what we're calculating. But what we see is an error rate of about 1 to 2% of total claims population. So if you think about it, when you're talking about a multi-billion-dollar hospital, that could easily be $300 million in claims, and if you're a month late on all of them and you're in a high interest state of 18%, the math kind of starts adding up. The simple math that I kind of walk folks through is, what's your initial denials rate? What percentage of your claims are getting paid within, say, 30 days, if that's the statute? Add those two together, the remaining population that sits out there, that's most likely a population that you should be trying to understand what the interest penalty could potentially be. So if you think about that math, you're talking 10 to 15% denial rate. Obviously, most organizations are lower, but just to make math easy, 10 to 15%, you probably get 60 to 65% of your revenue paid on time. So you're now at 80%, right, of your total net patient revenue. So that means 20% you really probably need to evaluate to see if there's an interest and penalty opportunity. And so when you do the math like that and you start looking at organizations that are multi-billions of dollars, all of a sudden that math can add up pretty quickly. And obviously, if it's a state that has higher interest or more strict rules around payment timeframes, that also helps add to the argument. A good example, starting in 26, well, I say prior to 26, they had a rule where Medi-Cal and any HMO in the state had 45 days. All the other commercial plans had 30 days to pay. In 26, they amended that law so everybody has 30 days to pay. So that law changes, the logic changes, et cetera, in 26. But, those are the types of things that if you're not looking at things at a claim level, and don't have the technology to kind of put all the pieces together and then look at how that compares to the prompt pay laws in that state, it's really difficult to calculate. And I would say
Right, go ahead.
No,
I was just
go
going to
ahead.
say, I think putting the information, having this information in your hands as an organization just gives you more leverage against these payers, right? To say,
Yes.
hey, this looks like it could cost you X amount more dollars. So how about we come to the table and make things happen, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
even if the result of this is simply putting more power in the hands of organizations to collect, that seems,
even if they don't,
at the very
collect
least,
on
if
it.
that's what it does, that seems valuable to me.
Without a doubt. Yeah, it's another data point that they can use as part of their
Sure.
managed care discussions.
Or also they could just get that money, baby.
Yeah. I mean,
the money.
And I'll always go back to that lawsuit in 2016 in Texas. I mean, that was one provider against one payer for $35 million over a 4-year look-back period. So you amplify that across all states, all providers, all payers, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, there's probably some things that are just not happening appropriately and nobody's necessarily paying attention to, that we need to ideally bring to light, on behalf of providers.
And is there a statute of limitations on the time span that they can go back and look at? Because that also seems
question.
Right.
No, we have yet to find a statute of limitations. So most of these laws went into effect in the early 2000s to mid 2000s. If you read the language, and I'm not a lawyer, but we've done a lot of research, we have yet to find an actual statute of limitations. So we start typically with a 2-year period to kind of prove it out. And then, after that, we have conversations with folks of, hey, do you want to go back further to kind of test those waters?
Sure.
Do you want to just keep doing it ongoing? A lot of times the data fidelity is hard the further back you go, especially if they've changed clearinghouses or changed DHRs. It becomes kind of a cost outweighs the benefit in a lot of cases.
Sure.
Don't you think that people would want to know the information regardless? Because even if they're not collecting from, let's say, I don't know, maybe United, this would be a good one. but they could use it in their, like you said, they can use, and they would know exactly the number. Because I think what I still predicting that this is going to continue to happen, and what happened at a faster rate, is that most of these nasty negotiations are going to be a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Health system's going to use the legal system, which is they have and successfully have. And I think you could use this as like just a big weapon. Be like, hey, you already owe us. Like the Dallas Methodist case is an example, but if you use that in a thing, you're like, hey, you're actually not paying us, and this is what we could actually collect, and we're going to sue you on based on this number.
Yep.
So
For sure.
that feels like real. I mean, I don't know. A court would be like, yeah, I mean, this is in the federal law, or state law, so I don't understand why we wouldn't be able to they wouldn't be in their right to do this.
Yeah, for sure. And you see kind of games in terms of how the payers are actually paying this out. So a good example, we had a claim that we were looking at. It had 3 remits on it. The first remit, they approved an injection but denied all the drug codes, and they paid it late, so they paid a portion of interest. And then there was a second remit where they overturned part of the J codes. They paid that. There was a portion of interest. And then the third remit where they overturned the remaining J codes, they paid it with no interest. So you're like, okay, well, in this sequence of events, the first 2, you're admitting that interest should have been paid. And then the third one, you're like, nah, we're good.
Right.
We'll just stop doing it.
Yeah. No, literally. So we spent a year and a half literally kind of taking apart an 835 to figure out all the elements that we needed to be able to pull into some sort of calculation. So that was an interesting experience too, because I can like phonetically read an 835 now without having it parsed out or anything like that. But we needed to go to that level.
That's
to
a real
understand.
party truck. You should.
Yeah. Every
Yeah.
party,
At
I
Christmas
just
parties, you just be like,
Bust out.
you know what I can do?
Yeah, I put up the
He's
X12
never been more
file
popular,
formats.
Adam.
Yeah,
It's like,
for sure.
You've never been more popular.
It
The guy
actually
next to you is
encourages a lot
taking the
more
cork
drinking.
bottle with a knife. He's doing that thing. But you're just like, no, I got something way better.
Yeah, it's like that movie Airplane where he's sitting in the middle chair and he starts telling his stories to the people next to him, and the one guy is like, yeah. So, but yeah, it was interesting. But so we did that, which we're still doing, and then we really got into the IDR component, and we spent about 8 months of research on that whole process.
What is this? I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
So you're going to describe it.
Yeah. So the independent dispute resolution process was something that was created out of the adoption of the No Surprises Act. So if you go back to 22, the No Surprises Act went into place. Everybody's like, great, no more surprise medical bills from these out-of-network providers, right?
Sure.
So it was a win for patients. The problem, though, in that scenario was that the normal payment loop in healthcare, if you're in network, is patient goes in for service, the hospital bills the insurance carrier pays the hospital, and then the patient gets their cost share and pays the hospital as well. Well, what happens under No Surprises is the patient is entirely removed from the equation because you can't balance bill those patients. So what ended up happening was these payers very quickly realized, we're not going to get complaints anymore from patients for these exorbitantly high medical bills. So what we're going to do is we're going to the hospitals and we're going to cut our payments to them for these services. So we have seen payers that were in network that were paying 75, 80% of charges, granted that's high. Literally overnight, their payments were coming in at 25 to 35% of charges because they went out of network. And because the patient isn't complaining anymore to their employer of like, why am I getting this bill? I have insurance, right? That feedback loop disappears. And so what they created is the independent dispute resolution process, which essentially allows payers and providers to submit to arbitration for adequate payment for these claims. And the great thing is the patient is still removed from it. So it's not like there's additional cost share going to the patient in these scenarios. It's literally a negotiation between payer and provider. And I will make a very bold statement, and you may look at me sideways, but improved revenue on a per encounter basis for claims that you successfully win in the arbitration process is arguably the single largest revenue improvement opportunity that most providers are not targeting. And the reason I say that is twofold. One, if you look at the national data, providers are winning on average 85% of the time. When they are winning, they are typically winning 300 to 350% increase on their original payment.
But
So-
Adam, let me turn it. Okay, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a little like, I need to clarify something.
Sure.
When does this, you're saying this, just trying to understand, make sure I understand when this is happening. You're talking
Sure.
about like, I'm a patient that has, I'm a member that has Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. I have an in-network. I go out of network, which is actually very hard to do. So that's a whole nother subject, but it's hard to do. I go out of network, and prior, let's just say there was, probably the most likely example is they sent my lab to some weird place that is out of network, and I didn't know they were doing that, right? That could be an example. And prior to that, I would pay that fee and be like, holy crap, I should have just paid 20%, and now I'm paying 80% of it because of whatever, because of the out of network.
Sure. Yep.
But in this scenario now with the No Surprises Act, which I do understand, but then that same claim, the previous, like, do you have does the hospital have they don't have a percentage they've already negotiated? But prior, they would just get paid a percent of something.
Well, so
Is that what the issue is?
Yeah, so there's two classes of out-of-network scenarios. So there's the elective procedure scenario. That is not covered under the NSA, right? The patient
Because you're just going in and you're
going in.
You kind of know what you're up against.
You're getting single case agreements usually in place, or the hospital is helping you get to an in-network provider. However, where the NSA really comes into play is the emergency trauma urgent visits, where basically I'm on vacation, I hurt myself, I have to be taken by ambulance to a hospital, I'm out of network for that entire encounter because that hospital doesn't have a contract with my payer. So that's really the population that we're focused on. That's the population that doesn't get the medical bill. That's also the population where the payers are basically paying at Medicare or within a percentage or two of Medicare. Like
you might be playing pickleball with someone and someone goes down while at an external location. I mean, I'm not saying this happened, but
that's fair. That's totally fair and fairly accurate as well.
Feels real.
Listen,
Tina, it is real because Adam and I were partners.
Yeah.
And I watched this man dive for a ball that no man should dive for, and it tore his Achilles.
Yeah, that was
so you did do this.
Sure.
I mean, this happened real time. You experienced this in real.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That was too easy.
Did you win the pickleball? Was it worth it?
We were winning. I think we were winning.
We were definitely winning. Yes. We were definitely winning.
Yeah.
But
for sure.
It didn't feel like winning afterwards.
No.
It felt like losing. Felt like we lost.
that was a fun experience for sure. I actually.
All right, so anyways, yes.
The good thing about that experience is the first time in 41 years that I had never really hurt myself that bad before. So I figure, like, statistically, I got it out of the way.
Yeah. Keep telling yourself that.
But anyway,
it's a good age to get hurt.
It is.
You want to do it then. You don't want to do it later. It's good.
Well, I could go. Yeah. When I finally got out of my boot, I still couldn't weight bear, and we obviously live in Florida, so we're out in the boat. And my wife's like, "You're not driving. You can't go on the boat." I'm like, "I'm fine. We're going on the boat. I've been stuck in the house for 4 months." And we go on the boat, and I realized I jumped off the boat fine because you're landing in water, you're buoyant. It was getting back on the boat. I looked like Shamu. Yeah, Shamu, just trying to
yourself.
Literally jump up on the swim platform and then wiggle myself up.
So sad.
Yeah. Of course, my best friends didn't help. They're just sitting there laughing at me.
They're watching.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Your wife's definitely not helping because she told you that it was like this.
Yeah,
is a big deal.
Yeah.
She knew it was going to happen.
Yeah. She knew.
But anyway, so there's that class of patient where they're entirely out of network for the entire stay. Then there's a class of patient where you go for a surgery, it's in network, but you have the out of network anesthesiologist, right?
Yeah.
And then the third class is your air ambulance patients. And so most
got to be constant.
Yeah. But most of what we see, and it's publicly available data on CMS's website, we've just had the opportunity to go through it. Most of what you see, though, is that the folks that are utilizing this process are primarily the contracted ER docs, the hospitalists, the anesthesiologists. But like 85% of the population is actually coming from those organizations. Providers themselves, acute care facilities, are surprisingly, in a lot of cases, not participating in the process. And there's many reasons for that. But that's really our research focused on how can we help providers manage this process, because it's muddy. The process itself is muddy at best. There are strict time frames in which you have to submit information, respond to things. There's a lot of data that you got to pull together to basically make your argument. And most importantly, and we found this going through the process, there's actually no single objective strategy or proof that arbiters are utilizing to make determinations. So
go
ahead.
Wait a second. So, because I was wondering even before this, like, who are the arbiter? Like, who is the arbitration people? Is there like something set up that would know even medical claims in any way, or is this just a random arbitration judge? And then you're like,
no. So there are 13. They're called IDREs or IDR entities that are contracted by CMS to manage this process on behalf of the federal government. If you look at how the U.S., there are certain states called federal states in this process, and those states, regardless of whether it's a self-insured plan or a fully funded plan like an exchange plan, they all go through one process through the CMS portal. You adhere to, you can pick which one of the 13 that you want to work with. Then there's what's called bifurcated states. Bifurcated states basically say the self-insured plans that are governed by ERISA still need to go through the federal process, but all of the fully funded plans that are managed by the State Department of Insurance, those states have actually set up their own internal IDR process for those claims. So some hospitals, I would say, have it easier because they're in a state that you just follow one process. Other hospitals, they actually have to adopt two separate, distinct processes. Exactly.
And then you have to bring each of these, like, I have to bring, like, let's just say, I don't know, Susie the patient. I bring one case at a time and I, like, tell them why I should get paid more? Or is it like I bring a shitload of cases and they figure out, like,
so that is a misconception. So there's what's called single cases, and then there's called bundled cases. And so single cases are exactly what it sounds. It's one patient, Susie, I'm submitting one case on her behalf. Then there are bundled cases, but the definition of bundling is mysterious, to say the least. So what has happened in the past...
It's like Scooby-Doo adventure. Let's do it.
The whole thing is a mystery, quite frankly.
Mystery machine.
So the interesting thing is, because it wasn't clearly defined, what ended up happening at the beginning was a lot of providers were bundling cases. They're saying, oh, well, this is all United. These are all emergency room claims, or name a payer. I'm going to submit them, as a bundle. And then the arbiter would get these claims and they'd reject them and say, these aren't ineligible to bundle. But there really wasn't like a very clear understanding as to why those got rejected. In our research, what we have found is that the bundling actually needs to occur at the member plan benefit level and like service level. So if you think about it in simple terms, you have to bundle things essentially by group ID and for a similar service. So you may have a bunch of ED claims, but if you have a 99281 for the same member pay and a 99285, those have to be two separate submissions. But if you have the same group ID for two cases of 99281, you can bundle those. So we've seen a lot of providers, they started this program, they went literally 0 for hundreds, and they just stopped because there was no clarity around what they had to do, how they had to do it, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where we spent a lot of time and diligence, once again, doing the research with a variety of different folks to really figure out, well, how does this process need to work and how does it work? How do we make it work effectively? And how do we manage to the time frames? How do we manage to, the patient flows? And you got to keep in mind too, majority of the volume that is being pushed through this process are emergency room cases, right? I'm being admitted to the ED, I'm getting discharged. Yes. But then there are patients that matriculate to OBS, outpatient, and even inpatient stays. So like a trauma event, those patients, the delta between what is remitted and what they would potentially be owed for that procedure can be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Single cases.
It's huge.
Yeah. And so the other challenge too for a lot of providers is, well, how do we calculate our QPA? And the QPA is qualified payment arrangement or agreement. That value is defined by CMS. You have to pick basically the median value of your in-network rate for that particular service and geographic location. So you have to do all of this research of showing that your rate and what you were paid was significantly below what you would have gotten paid as an in-network equivalent. You have to create a complexity of care summary explaining, patient came here for this. These are everything that happened to that patient, all of those things. Then you have to create what we'll call hospital characteristics, which is basically who am I as an organization and why do I command and premium in-network rate for this particular service? And then you have to do that over and over and over and over again, potentially across thousands of cases. And then you have to manage the independent timeframes of when you're submitting them and when the next piece of information is due. So there's all these things that are involved. And so, like I said, we spent a lot of time really focused on how do we solve this problem. And if you look at the metrics are very in favor of providers. Since 2022, there's been over $2 billion. No, there's been over $2 billion returned to providers specifically because of this solution.
This just pisses me off. So not that you guys didn't solve it. It's great. It's like way beyond my capabilities. This is like another reason. If you ask like, well, why is healthcare so expensive? It's like, well, shit. Like the government thinks they're doing something smart in creating a No Surprises Act, which I totally understand. The idea of it makes total sense. But then you do this other piece, and now we have all this other cost and infrastructure, and they want to say administrative burden. I mean, that's what this is to a degree. But it's even like a veiled administrative burden where it's like, well, you don't have to get the money, but by the way, try to still survive. And then I still like the fact that like we're still painted, health systems are still painted as the major problem in this area.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I would say that the silver lining to all of this is, once you start winning against a particular payer, not only are they having to pay the increased rate, because the arbitration determination is a legally binding requirement. So not only are they paying a significantly higher rate, there's also fees and a cost associated if you lose. And so what ends up happening is once these payers start losing consistently, they're not only paying a higher rate, but then they're having to pay these loss fees on top of it. Because in the arbitration process, the loser pays the loss fees. So what we have actually started to see is that the payers actually start paying a higher amount on the next patient that comes through the door to try to avoid arbitration. So it is actually having a positive influence on payer behavior.
But they're not held to, like, let's just say, diagnosis code of this, same level of service. Hospital wins a certain judgment. They get this amount of, let's just say they got 75% or something. I don't know, whatever number.
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that it carries forward. The same exact service level, they get that same rate, or they don't.
So
it's not carrying forward.
Yes. So actually, it is supposed to carry forward.
But then
so
you got to
that's
track that.
exactly. So once an arbitration determination is made, that particular member benefit plan and that particular service go into what's called a 90-day cooling down period. And so what the 90-day cooling down period is essentially the government's way of saying, please don't resubmit a case that we've already arbitrated on. The payer should be adhering to what that arbitration determination is. What you can do, though, as a provider, and this once again goes back to additional administrative work, if you do have cases that come in under that rate, you can collect them over that 90-day period. And on the 91st day, you can resubmit them to arbitration, utilizing that first win as the evidence to support payments for those additional cash. So it is an ongoing cycle, to your point, Ben, that you have to manage and monitor. And so, yes, there definitely is an administrative cost associated with managing all of these encounters. And keep in mind, these aren't massive populations of encounters, but for a very large multi-billion-dollar system, it's a few thousand encounters a year that you have to pay attention to. But as more providers decide to go out of network with either large commercial payers or Medicare Advantage plans, there are some folks that we've talked to that are in that process, and they very quickly realize we have no pressure release valve on the other side of going out of network. And so they're scrambling to get this IDR process actually set up.
But it's still to my point. Like, it's still like a person or a vendor or persons on the health system side that they have to like actually go do all this and manage it. And it's just another layer. But I didn't know any of that, so that's fascinating.
Yeah, it's the interesting thing, and the reason I learned about it, I actually met one of the VPs of one of the IDR entities that do these arbitration companies at a conference.
On a plane?
No, not on a plane.
That would have been too good.
Yeah.
What do you do? Well, it's complicated.
Yeah, you wouldn't understand. But I really started picking her brain and kind of corresponded with her over several months as I started to do more research and have questions. And she was a wealth of knowledge around, here's what makes a good process. Here's what makes a bad process. This is what we look at. So it really helped us inform how we help in this space, our clients and partners. But it's, like I said, it is literally on a per encounter level, one of the largest revenue improvement opportunities that a lot of providers just aren't tackling right now for a variety of reasons, right? It's small volume. So to your point though, Ben,
this is very nuanced.
Yep. Very nuanced for sure. But it's a very interesting process for sure.
All right. Well, Adam, we got to wrap. We could talk
so
all
much,
day
though.
about all this
thanks,
stuff.
Adam.
I love this stuff, man. I love this stuff. So
we nerded out there. For
I love
sure.
it when we get a big old nerd. I like it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I mean that as a huge compliment. That's said with love. Trust me.
Here, self-proclaimed nerd. Those are Legos on the wall.
Nice.
Not.
I love it.
I mean, I don't get a Lego set for Christmas every year. That's not happening.
Well, I started 3 years ago. My mom actually got me a Lego set. She's like, you remember when you loved Legos? I'm like, yeah. She's like, here you go. I spent like 3 days in my pajamas afterwards making it.
Yeah, 2 years ago, I got the Home Alone house.
Nice.
Which is incredible. Best thing I've ever put together. And last year, I got the Harry Potter, the Weasley house, which is pretty cool.
Very cool.
I don't know what I'm getting this year. We'll see.
Well, listen, guys, I appreciate the time.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, hope you guys have a great holiday, and hopefully see you guys in the new year.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Sounds good.
All right, y'all.
Thanks, Adam.
All right, have a good day.